Welcome back. We've been talking about this a lot this week, and we're fortunate enough to have Laura Oster-Aaland with us. Now, she is a Vice Provost for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management at NDSU, and the subject or the conversation needs to focus on, are there less kids going to college? And if they are going to college and we just don't see them, what's the method? How are they doing it? Has the world changed? And I want to visit with Laura about that. Laura, thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
So the obvious question is, are less kids going to college?
Nationally, that is true. The last few years, there's been declines in college going. There are also fewer high school kids, though. We're entering a 20-year slump in birth rates that started after the last Great Recession. So there's fewer kids, first of all, fewer 18-year-olds. And there are some that are making other choices. We've bucked that trend a little bit at NDSU the last 2 years for certain in terms of our first-year enrollments. We've actually grown those enrollments. So I think it's still a good portion are finding college approachable and to be what they want and see the value for their future. But that is a national and regional trend.
Why do you think that is?
I think kids have a lot of options these days. You know, I raised two sons. They're growing up in a technological age with a lot of options. But they also, they can get jobs a lot of places for good money. So, when you're 18, making a choice about your future, that's a hard thing to weigh. And, what I said to my boys and what I see in all of the data is that the college degree still pays off. Over a lifetime, no matter how much college education you have, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and graduate school, for every year of college, you earn more money over a lifetime. So if you're simply looking at it from a return on investment, absolutely still worth it. But I think students also need to follow their passion. And, and you don't always know what that is at 18.
Right.
So that's part of it.
What you said, though, about, the opportunity for financial success. There's no question that going to college gives you greater opportunities. And you're going to do better financially at life. I get that. Been there, understand it. Want to talk about the need, though, of that 18-year-old. Because you mentioned more jobs. They are needed. They're needed in the workforce right away. I guess what I'm asking is, are the employers better recruiters than we who advocate for higher ed are?
Well, they certainly have some levers we don't have, right now in terms of giving sign-on bonuses and that kind of thing. But again, I think that college student needs to think about the long-term future. But also as a society, we need to think about all the retirees. The baby boomers are heading out to retirement, and they're going to need people ready to replace them in skilled, educated folks with experience. So I think, NDSU is still a great option for folks, kids trying to think about their long-term future. But I also think we need to adapt a little bit to society. And that's where, we've got a new degree completion program, for instance. There's a lot of people out there in the workforce who maybe went 1 or 2 years but didn't finish. So we've got a path for them to come back, finish quickly, and get out in there. Because maybe after, 10, 15 years in the workforce, they realize they can't get that next promotion without that college degree. And so it's kind of a both and today. We've got to meet employers where they're at, but we also need to realize that if we don't train up all of these young people, these businesses may not have workers today, but it'll be a worst case in 10 years if we don't increase the number of students getting degrees.
Well, two things based on what you said. Number one, come back. Okay, there were a lot of 18-year-olds that weren't ready for college. They just weren't mature enough. And I don't want to be gender specific, but boys, there were a lot of boys that dropped out of college after the first year, maybe second year. That being said, if there's the ability, if there's the way to start even at the 2-year college level and go to an NDSU and work towards that 4-year degree, hats off to you. Because I know there's a lot of people want to do that. I do. The second part that stuck out in what you said was that there's less 18-year-olds. You know, I was at a seminar one time, and it wasn't that long ago, and the whole point of the individual was workforce. And he began with China, and he called it a factor of one. And the reason it was a factor of one was because China had limited couples to one child. That was it. That's all you could have. You remember that. And he said the average in America now was about 1.4. Well, that's a lot different and you get in trouble mentioning anyone's age. So I'm not asking your age, but when you and I were younger, it wasn't 1.4. I'm a child of 7.
I know how big your family is.
Exactly. So when you say that in relation to baby boomers retired, it's actually kind of scary for me. I mean, what are we going to do in society without the workers to do it?
Yeah, I do think, and that's where I think, NDSU exists to serve our state and to serve our citizens. And that's where looking at higher education as a public good is so important. You know, that it is not just something for the rich kids to do or the kids that always knew they were on a college track. That higher education is for everyone. And that's why we're really working to make ourselves accessible to all students of all ages and serving them in a variety of ways so that we can meet those workforce needs. That's why we exist. And we want to be relevant today, but we also want to be relevant in 10, 20 years.
See, I don't think that's changed. I think people love going to NDSU and love being a Bison. You know, I don't think it's all about football, but I think that helps, obviously. Tools in your toolbox. But I have so many friends that went to NDSU, and they are doing fabulous at life, and their best moments were being at NDSU. I mean, my producer, Abby Miller, is just exactly that. She wears it right on her sleeve. So one of the big questions that I've got to ask you is debt? I mean, because when my kids came out of school, they had college debt. It took them a while to work through that. Mom and Dad didn't pay for it all. So how big of a role does debt play in it?
I think debt is is on top of mind for families when they're choosing a college education. And, I would ask families to really think about that, because think about a year of college compared to a new car, which people don't really seem to balk at, taking out a car payment to pay for a car, which depreciates in value. Your college education will increase in value over the years. But the other thing you're talking about, I mean, I really do agree. And that's why while NDSU is interested in offering degrees in different formats, this degree completion program, we've got a few things going on in the online space now. We are also about the college experience, and it is a time to grow and develop as a human being, as a leader. All of the soft skills that you need. You could go almost anywhere and get an online degree where you don't interact with anybody.
Right.
But who are you going to be in 4 years? Versus who you are after you grow and develop and are engaged in campus activities. So that's
the friends you meet
the
for
friends
life.
you make, and the experiences you have.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about the NDSU experience a lot, and the NDSU family, and that is a big part of college, and that's part of what you're paying for, is that experience.
The other thing I think people need to understand about the North Dakota University system, and since we're focusing on NDSU, is if you match up the cost versus other states, versus what you get when you get that degree versus other states. You don't lose a cog when you get an NDSU or a UND or whatever degree when you're competing with others for jobs, but you sure have less cost to get it.
Exactly.
And are we doing a good job of telling that story?
Yeah, I think we can always do better. I think that is why a lot of students choose us, like why we have a lot of Minnesota students come over here. And I know, the value in that is that 41% of those Minnesota students who come here for their education because of the value stay here for their first job. I mean, that's a huge... That's great for our workforce, and that's
which means investing in it is good for us.
And maybe they'll stay over the course of their life. A good portion of them will. So, all kinds of ways that NDSU is a public good. Higher education, the university system is a public good, and that's what we've been so grateful that our state has invested in higher education, and why it's still of value.
Well, in part, then it's my fault because I only had 2 kids and I'm one of 7.
Yeah.
So you can blame me.
Me too.
Laura, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Because you're doing it. NDSU and the university system are doing a good job. And something tells me that when the economy and the need for employees goes a little bit like this, any numbers like this are going to go like this. They are. So.